Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are talking with the 2021 $1,500 WSOP Shootout bracelet winner. We're fortunate to see him holding up the bracelet. If you're watching on YouTube, Gershon, do it one more time so everyone sees the lovely piece of jewelry. I love the logic. You had said the last part of our interview that you want to wear it. No one else wears it. I'll tell you, between you and me, I'm with you. I spent a lot of time trying to win this thing. I got it. And you know what? I'm going to wear it. And maybe not all the time, but I'm going to wear it a lot, especially when I'm playing poker. And you know what? If someone makes fun of me, so what? You know,
yeah, it was funny. I was at Bernard, it's funny. I was at a kind of hybrid work social event recently with a couple of my colleagues, very senior people. Yeah. And there was also happened to be a World Series of Poker final tableist from way back when there. Steve Begleiter.
I was about to say Steve Begleiter. Yeah, of course I know. Yeah.
So we were talking. Yep. So they were making fun of me. I had it on. They were going, "Oh, Gershon, he's gonna just wear the bracelet forever. You know, it's haughty. It's this. It's that."
Yeah.
And Steve goes to them. Do you understand how hard it is to win one of those?
There you go.
I won one of
those.
There you go. Also, never leave my wrist.
Right. There you go. Phil Gordon used to say this: there are two types of poker players in the world. One's with and one's without. And there are a lot more without. So until you're in that, if you were a bracelet winner, I would say if a bracelet winner came up to you and said something like that, okay, take it for what it's worth. Hey, listen, I don't wear mine ever. You shouldn't wear yours. It's too right. Okay, that's fine. But if you are one without, you have nothing to say until you jump over into that other category. When you jump over the other category, you have the right to say whatever you want. But until that time, I know right, it's jealousy. That's all it is. It's just jealousy. Trust me. I'm as jealous sitting there, even though I'm on a YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube on screen where I'm trying to touch him, I'm trying to steal it right now. That's what I'm trying to do. I just want to grab it, so obviously it is a phenomenal achievement. And like you said, put those numbers into perspective. You don't have the time to go out for 8 weeks, 7 weeks, like a lot of these people who literally park, get an Airbnb, the whole deal. You're going out for just a few events. And on top of that, you played in an event with probably one of the smallest fields in a no-limit hold'em event. Usually no-limit hold'em is minimum 1,800, if not 3,000 to 4,000. Jeremy Osmus won the Turbo COVID charity. That was a very fortunate one. It was kind of one of those weird scenarios where there's a few hundred, but you had only 800 people. Let's describe the shootout scenario for some people, because some people don't know what this is that there are 800 people that start out, and then they're all 10-handed. So it is a 10-handed, basically sit and go. Sit and goes. Top 3 get prizes, but this one is winner take all of all of the winners. So there'll be 80 winners, right? 800 people, 80 winners. Yep. Those 80 winners now move on to the second round, and they are now in the money. They now are in the money. So you have 80 players. Now those 80 players come together for 8-handed tables. There's 10 of those. Same thing, winner take all. That winner will now go on to the final table, and there'll be 10 people at that final table. Everyone starts out with the same number of chips because they all played the same number. There have been times where some of the chips are just slightly off because one had a 9-person table, one had a 10-person table, etc. So it doesn't always work out that it's 800. If there was 790, 10 tables wouldn't have that extra person, if people can understand. So then there's 10 players. You all come back and play it out. And at the final table, it's a little different because there are some, there's actually some ICM consideration now in some respects, because you have 10th through 1st having cashed, whereas normally in the first 2 rounds of the shootout, it doesn't matter. You came in 2nd or you came in 9th. You got, zero, either zero or no additional improvement if you were in the second round. So just wanted to explain that to everyone, because I'm not 100% sure that everyone knows about this. I've played in this event a few times. It just kind of hasn't worked out. I usually am there a couple times. I go for like 10 days or 12 days and then come home and et cetera, et cetera. And it just hasn't worked out that it's always in my schedule. It's not definitely one that I circle, I will say that. But it's very sit and go-ish. But the one person described this. They said it's one of the, don't take this the wrong way, easiest ways to make the final table, because you got to win 2-1 tables and you're now at a final table. And when I thought of it that way, it was funny. I wasn't playing it the first time. This was like 10 years ago. And he called me on the phone. He goes, "Why are you not down here?" And I said, "What are the odds of me winning 2, 3, 1 table? Come on. Like, that's even winning. That's just too much." He goes, "You understand, you win just 2 of them and you're at a final table." And at the time I had not made a final table yet. And I went, literally, it was one of those where he was like, "Hello, hello." And I was standing next to him buying in, that kind of thing. So, talk a little bit about what I'd love to, for my listeners to understand, is some strategies that you would tell them with regards to playing a shootout, because it is very, very different than just playing a normal tournament, right? It's very different. So what would be kind of your strategies that you would give my listeners on playing a shootout? A couple strategies.
Yeah. So Bernard, you hit the nail on the head. There's more than this, but the big difference is, one, everyone starts with the same amount of chips throughout the tournament on day 2 and day 3. And that's unlike any other really tournament. And the second one is it's winner take all. So, very often you will, in a regular no limit tournament or any tournament, you will pass up on plus EV situations because survival is important. You'd rather finish you'd rather last a little bit longer, especially if you're in the money, and win a little more money than not. But here you're really incentivized to play, I think, a much more aggressive style, which is suited to my game. I tend to be more aggressive. Secondly, though, and I didn't know this at the time, and I also did not circle the shootout. It happened to just be in the window of the week that I was able to go to Vegas. But I didn't know it at the time, is that I really studied that way. When I made the 2020 final table, Steve Begleiter, actually through a mutual friend of ours, introduced me to Jonathan Little, and he offered to coach me for free. It was incredibly nice of me, because I was giving all of my money to charity, all the money I won. And I basically told him, look, I didn't really care if I finished, 8th or 3rd. I wanted to maximize my chance. Obviously, finishing 3rd would be better than 8th, but I didn't want ICM considerations. I really wanted to give myself the best chance to win. So I only lasted 6 hands when I made the 2020 final table, but we spent hours and hours preparing, and to really take advantage of others caring about ICM, and for me to play a style that maybe had a chance of going out early, like I did in that final table, or let me advance. And I think that, I will say it's interesting. Day 1, I felt like I really was one of the best players at the table. Day 2, I thought like I was completely overmatched. It's interesting. You get 10 people that had won one day before. Especially that first day, I felt like people didn't really, not everyone at the table appreciated that it wasn't a regular no-limit tournament. Right. And you had to adjust your strategy. So again, I think you have to get out of the ICM mentality. You have to get out of the survival mentality, because if you just try and survive, you're going to get blinded down, and you're going to be at a huge disadvantage when the table gets 3 or 4 handed. And there's no money for you finish 2nd, you finish 10th on that first day. So that's you
get something. You get a pat on the back. Nice try. And there's the registration for the next tournament.
That's right. But look, I think that this format definitely suits my style. I will say now, I will make sure, or try to make sure, that I'm there next year.
Find it first and be like, that's the week I'm going.
Yeah.
Couple things. So one, you actually answered my question already. Was that what I was going to ask is that did the World Series main event in 2020 help you prepare for this indirectly? Because like you said, it was all or nothing at that point. Yes, you finished 8th. Yes, you made 125,000, but because you were doing this for charity, you really had a very unique scenario to say, I really don't care. I'd like to win as much money and the bracelet. And if I finish anywhere from second to eighth, who cares? That kind of thing.
And Bernard, I will say a couple of things. One is I never entered. This is my first shoot I've ever been in. Two, let's talk about the good fortune. I didn't even realize when I entered it that like this is what I maybe subconsciously did, but that this is what I really practiced more than anything.
Right.
And I think the third thing is I definitely will say at the final table, I had an advantage in that I did not care about the pay jumps. So I was able to play aggressive from the get-go. The truth of the matter is in the fourth hand, I got aces versus king. So I doubled up right away. So that actually makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly.
However, I was able to continue the aggression because I really, for me, I wanted to win this bracelet. And there's you could play in a way that guarantee is not the right word, that and your average winning, you'll finish fourth or fifth most of the time.
Right.
But you have very little chance of finishing first.
Right.
I wanted to maximize my chance of finishing first, winning the bracelet, but that also comes at the probability of going out much earlier, and that was an acceptable trade-off for me. So I think that was an advantage to me in that final table, and I'm sure there were other players that cared a lot more about the pay jumps because they were significant.
And I think that what's interesting is what you said. You really have to utilize the aggression in this, because in my belief is, especially at the final table, is that there is ICM, but your chip stacks are the same. Normally, when you get to a final table, there's a chip leader. You want to see who's got the chip lead. Every time I interview people who have made the World Series final table, main event, or any final table, really, you always say, okay, so what was your seat like? What did it look like? How was it? Et cetera, et cetera. We talked with Chase Bianchi, who finished ninth, and even though he was one of the shortest stacks, he's like, I like my seat because I'm to the left of the chip leaders, et cetera, et cetera. There's no such thing. It's not like you have to look and be like, who's the chip leader and am I in a good seat? You all have the same starting stack. That's
true, Bernard, but I'll correct you on one small thing. My seat draw was actually critical in that the best player by far at the table was Ari Engel. And yes, we had the same amount of chips, but the fact that he had to act before me in just about every hand.
So that was the next statement. So that was the next statement I was going to say is that your chips are all the same, so you can't wield your chips. So now it's really the ability of the players, and then from there, the aggression factor and taking those risks that, like you said, in a normal tournament, you might not take those risks. But if you're going for that win and potentially utilizing this ICM scenario that other people didn't. And did you find a couple things? One, did you find that some of those players at the final table, it took them a little bit to realize, wait a second, maybe I should think about this ICM scenario, or that you saw that they were looking at that a little bit more than they were in round one and round two?
Yeah, I think not every player, but many certainly were. I actually don't put Ari in that category, but Jonathan was very helpful for me in giving me a good read on how Ari plays and how I'd have to get aggressive with him and 3-bet him a couple times early on, which is what I ended up doing. But I think there were definitely players at that table that for most people was probably their first final table.
Right.
That was their first chance at a really big score. So, the pay jump were everyone who, you mentioned everyone in the money after you won the first day, it was $1,500 entry fee. I think the money, it was $5,000. So everyone who lost that second day is $5,000. You get to the final table, and I think the 9th place or the 10th place payout was $15,000, and it went up from there. And the pay jump started to get pretty big. I won $204,000, and second was $116,000, third was like $75,000. So the pay jumps were significant money to people, and they played that way. And if you care about pay jumps and maximizing your based on ICM, you're supposed to do that. But again, not everyone at the table, I'm sure, was like that. I know Ari wasn't playing that way. I wasn't playing that way, and there were probably a couple others, but there certainly were people, and I think that was an advantage to, if you weren't playing that way, you could exploit those who cared more about the pay jumps.
Wanted to come back. I had written this down when you said, so I want to come back. You had said that it took a while for some of the players to realize when they're playing the first table. Like you said, the first table, you said that you felt like you were the best player. The second table, you felt like you overhead. I mean, obviously it's a little different in the second table. First table is complete luck who you get. I mean, it could be that you're with 5 bracelet winners, but if you have a good draw, then the second one, well, all 10 of them won. So they got to be, at least some of them have got to be good, decent. So it's obviously different than obviously it's a double win. But you said that some of them took a while. What were some of the mistakes that you were recognizing in those other players, so that if any of my listeners have the opportunity to play in this event, that they hopefully could avoid at least in the first time?
Yeah, look, it's hard, obviously, without seeing everyone's cards in most hands to know exactly, but I definitely felt like there was, or sometimes when you saw the cards, especially calling all ins, people were overly tight. And, and they would say things like after the hand, yeah, like, someone's short stacked, but there was another, there was a short stack around, and you don't want to go out before the short stack. And someone kind of pushes knowing that, and they with a pretty wide range, and you have, ace queen suited, and you lay it down, you over, pocket sixes or something like that. And people were, people talk a lot at the table, not always the smartest thing to do. I probably was guilty of it a lot as well. So like those types of situations, and I think you get a feel for just how people, not just what they do, but how they react around it. So who cares more about the pay jumps and who doesn't. You never know for sure. You're kind of reading people and basing their actions. But I felt like I had a pretty good read on a couple of people that helped me out. So
the first round and the second round, did you see that players were doing that as well, making folds that were, I mean, like in a lot of respects, you have any semi-draw, flush draw, nut flush draw, I mean, gosh, if you have a nut flush draw with a straight draw, I mean, you don't even think twice about this at that scenario. You got to go. I mean, like if it's a 50-50, even sometimes maybe if it's a 45-55, hey, listen, you're going to have to win them eventually. And the last thing you need to be is short stack. Let's go. And if you get a big stack, maybe you can wield it. But right. I mean, that's really,
I think, Bernard, I think you're right. And that's where I noticed a huge difference between the first day and the second day. First day, I felt like not everyone understood that. Not everyone. It's much like, by the way, I played a couple of mixed events, and my prep for those was basically reading a book on it the night before. I almost cashed in one, actually, but like, I'm sure I'm at a huge disadvantage there because I don't really know the game. I think that people think that all no limit tournaments are the same, and this is and many are different based on the buy-in and how deep they are, but those pale in comparison to this format. This format was a premium, which you have to win or not. So I think the first day, there were some people at my table that didn't get that. By the second day, everyone had won already, as you said. And I think it was a lot tougher the second day. A lot tougher table. There were times I felt like there were some really good players at my table. No one famous that I would have known who they are, but clearly, to your point, some people could have gotten lucky that first day, but the odds are not everyone got lucky that first day, and that you had some really good players at the table. And got to the final table, I'd say the players were even at a higher level. There was one player in particular that I thought was not very good at all and very readable, but maybe I'm wrong on that, or maybe he, there is a luck element, so you can win a couple days.
Right. And when you played this tournament, obviously you have. What's somewhat interesting in this is that your quote unquote day one and your day two are technically on the same day, right? Like, so you play the first round kind of like at noon, and then you come back at later that night and play the next.
Oh, no.
No, you did. You did. Oh, okay. Because
it was
in other years, I think they've done that. They did, the first round. Then they took a break for dinner, and then they came back for the next round, that kind of thing.
No,
so you did.
It started at noon every day, I believe. And I think the first day I lasted about 7. Yeah, I remember the first day was 2 of us. It was heads up, and they asked us, "Do you want a dinner break?" And your choices were, you can do 60 minutes or just a regular 20 minutes. And the reason was that there were 40-minute levels, so they wanted to either you be a level ahead or not. So we chose not to take a dinner break and just finish it up. The second day, I'm trying to remember. I think it was like 6 hours. It's interesting. The final table lasted, even though the stacks weren't incredibly deep. The heads up match itself was 4 hours long. Lasted 10 hours, I think.
let's talk a little bit about that heads up. It was a battle. You were down 2-1 in chip lead. You fought your way back up. You guys flip-flop chips. And then as it's been written about, he had like 9 lives. He just wouldn't go down. Every single time he had a shot to eliminate him, something would happen, etc. How do you mentally get through that? Because for any poker player, when that unfortunate, like you're that close, right? You're whatever, 10 cards, you got to avoid a 10-outer, you got to avoid a 6-outer, and you're the champ or you win it. And then that card hits on the turn and you're just sitting there going, oh God, now we got to do this again. How do you get through it? Because it's one thing for it to happen once, but for it to happen as many times as it did for you, it's got to be a sort of exhausting mentally, forget physically, mentally it's exhausting because this is potentially the moment and you may not get back. I say this, unfortunately, I say this with experience, that you come that close, right? I still think about that heads up runner-up finish. I'm going nuts. But like, how do you get through that experience for yourself or mentally? Because in a lot of respects, the other player is riding the momentum the other way because every time they're like, yeah, I'm still in this thing kind of thing. How do you do that to overcome? It's tough.
So yeah, Bernard, it is tough. I will say this. I pride myself on being pretty even keeled about this. I understand probability. I understand you can get it all in good and not win, and you can get it in poorly and get lucky and win. I try not to let those things impact me. In poker, like in life also, I think it's about making consistently good decisions. If you make good decisions in the short run, you can make a good decision, have a bad outcome. You can make a bad decision and get lucky. But those who consistently make good decisions are going to end up with more good outcomes than not. So I pride myself on really, and I don't get too up or too down. I will say, even for me that knows that logically and intuitively, it was difficult. He was down to 2 big blinds a couple of times.
Right.
We started the heads up. He had a 2-1 chip lead. I was able to wrestle that back, had a 2-1 chip lead. We kind of stayed like that. Then he was down to 2 blinds and, he was all in. He doubled up like 3 times. Before you knew it, he had the chip lead. Then I wrestled it back and brought him all the way down again to 2 blinds. And then he came back and made it about even. And I'll tell you, I remember the last break, and it was 4 hours in, I think there was about 20 million chips in play. Roughly I had 11.5 million. He had 8.5 million. So I had a slight lead. The blinds were getting up there. I think they were 300, 600 at that point. So it wasn't going to last forever. And I called, we had a 15-minute break, and I called Jonathan Little. It was like 2:30 in the morning. He was very nice enough in New York to be up. And I'm like, Jonathan, I feel like this is just not, I have a chip lead still. I said, I feel like this is just not meant to be. I need you to pump me up, give me some advice. And he's like, Gershon, you know what to do. You just go out and play well, play good. But I will say it's ironic that finally he was down to, again, I don't know, 2.5 big blinds. And basically, with the money in the pot, I had to call with any 2 cards. So my winning hand, I had Queen 4 against his Queen 10. And I'm the one who got lucky and spiked a 4 on the turn. So I guess the karma came back. But to your point, Bernard, it was, even for someone who's pretty rational like myself and really doesn't get bent out of shape either way, doesn't get too high when he wins, too low when he loses. I felt like, I'm when I told the Poker News reporter, I said, I feel like he's a cat, because I think he's had about 9 lives at this point.
Yeah. Well, it shows you, even though the mathematical rationality, just the human nature, it just comes about. Only Spock could probably go through this completely thinking it was all about logic, and that's the world that we live in, unfortunately, in the world of poker. Obviously, you will, like you just said, every year now probably circle that event, the shootout event, as it didn't realize that it really fits your style almost perfectly. Will it change anything with regards to playing as well? Like, I know you're very busy. I know it's tough for you to get out, but being that you're just very close to the Hard Rock, will you play more events there at the Hard Rock? Because they have a lot of events throughout the year.
I'll do it when there's a reason to. Steve Begleiter, who I had actually never met in person because of COVID until a few weeks ago. He said he's going to be there playing an event next week, so I may just play that event because he's playing it. But no, I don't. It's funny. So I went out there a second. So when I won the bracelet, it was when I was supposed to fly back Wednesday morning, to Nashville, where our company has an office, and I had a full day of meetings on Thursday. And when I made the final table, obviously I couldn't fly back in the morning. I booked my flight thinking, 1 in 100 chance of making the final table. I made the final table. I changed the flight to a red eye. I'd still make it back in time. But before you knew it, it was 11:30 at night. I missed the red eye. I had no flight home, no hotel room, and a full day of meetings starting at 5 a.m. local time. Vegas. So I had to, no one should cry for me. I got a hotel room. I kind of like celebrated by myself, just started like dancing. Like dancing in the shower. I was just like, I can't believe I won this. And I slept for like 3-4 hours and did a full day of meetings and then flew back. So I came back. I was planning to come back for the main event. They wouldn't give me the bracelet, by the way. They were afraid I wasn't going to come back. I had to wait for the bracelet to start when I came back. When I came back, I played the main event. I got eliminated, towards the end of the first day. And I played a couple more tournaments afterwards, the one drop tournament and the crazy eights. And I was supposed to stay till like another 3 or 4 days. So I could have played another tournament or two. And I was just like, you know what? I feel like I'm kind of like burnt out. I need to get back to real life.
Right.
Back to work, back to my family. And so, I guess it just shows I could not be a professional poker player. I couldn't sit there. I don't have the patience.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's kind of the adrenaline rush. You're literally flying high, like, come on. I got to play another one. And then after reality hits that there are bad beats, and you don't always get great cards, and it doesn't always work out perfectly. All of a sudden, that feeling of, and then you're back to normal. Like, okay, ace king doesn't hit every time. Wow, what do you know? Boy, I can't hit a set every time I have a pair. Flush draws don't come in, and then you're like, back to reality. At least I have the bracelet on my wrist to remember the good times.
Yeah, and even now, we're now almost a couple months out from it. A couple months out, I don't have this burning desire. Like if the World Series of Poker was right now and no bunch of bracelet events, I wouldn't be like dying to go to it. I think by this summer, when it's been a while, I'll have the itch, and I will start. I'll study quite a bit. I'm not again. I don't think I think I have a lot of areas of my game I need to improve on. I'm not nearly as good as many others, so I can always get better. So it'll give me the best chance of winning. But yeah, when the World Series of Poker schedule comes out, it will certainly try to center it around this event.
Well, Gershon, I really appreciate it. A lot of fun chatting with you. A lot of fun talking about a unique way of playing No Limit Hold'em. Like you said, that not many people really focus on as well. Wish you all the best. Hey, this year is the best year. You really have a short period of time before the World Series starts again, because obviously 2021 started so late. So it's really right around the corner. It's amazing how quickly it will come around. I wish you all the best, and thanks so much for spending the time, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Bernard.
Gershon Distenfeld here, 2021 WSOP $1,500 shootout winner. Great story, and a fantastic scenario where he's able to contribute and donate all of the winnings to charity. Stay tuned. More winners, more stories. And like I said, before you know it, we're going to be talking about the World Series 2022 at Bally's Paris on the Strip. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody. And also, if you are watching on YouTube and you enjoyed this interview, please like and subscribe, and also hit the notification bell so you can get more interviews and you can't miss any of the good ones. Thanks, everyone.